It's time for one of the harder to find drops down the galaxy hole, and what is probably the last use of the original Galaxy Warriors molds by Sungold, and they stopped calling them Galaxy Warriors. These are the Freedom Fighters. Now, if you recall way back in the original Galaxy Warriors video, I referred to the Freedom Fighters as kind of like Galaxy Warriors Mark III. But Freedom Fighters came out quite a bit after the original Galaxy Warriors. As the packaging kinda hints at, these were the Galaxy Warriors rebranded for the 90s. One thing that makes it 100% certain that the Freedom Fighters were released in the 90s is the inclusion of the CE mark, which was first introduced in 1993. So that makes the Freedom Fighters release at least 10 years after the original Galaxy Warriors in 1983. So you might have noticed that there's something missing from this Freedom Fighters package here. It does not have the Sungold logo in the corner, nor does it say Sungold anywhere on it. But what kind of good Galaxy Warriors release would this be without variants? So yes, there is a completely different Freedom Fighters card which does have the Sungold logo in the corner. While the card I have features Huck fighting Dragoon, the other card features Magnon fighting Sawhack. But on this artwork, they made Magnon's hair look black, which makes him look more like his Galaxy Fighters equivalent, Dayton. Maybe Sungold did this because of them blatantly having the Galaxy Warriors version of Magnon on the Pegasaurus box. Or they just did it to be weird and I don't know why they do anything in these lines anymore, I don't know. Speaking of weird, there is a single small crappy photo I found of the same version of the card I have, but it does seem to have the Sungold logo in the corner. So I wasn't really sure at first if Sungold made this version of the Freedom Fighters, but that would seem to suggest they did, so they just made two completely different cards for the same figures. I don't know why Sungold does anything. It's like they're playing some long-term trolling game. And there is actually some differences with the figures on these two different Freedom Fighters packages. And to help show that off, I have Anubi from both versions of Freedom Fighters. And of the few figures that got any change in the Freedom Fighters, Anubi certainly got the most interesting one. Now back to the card, this is quite a blatant copy of another Frazetta painting, which is the one where they got the inspiration for the figure Huck in the first place, the Snow Giants. The Snow Giants artwork was actually used officially on a few things like a Conan book and a Dust album. And there is actually a statue set made of the Snow Giants, so there is an official Huck sort of out there. And Huck is one of the characters I actually have a Freedom Fighter figure of. Huck's pupils got quite a bit larger on his Freedom Fighter figure. Makes him look much more surprised than the original Galaxy Warrior figure. Or high, maybe. His beard got much redder on the Freedom Fighter figure and a little less poofy. And there's also this, the long arms. The long arms are yet another oddity in the Galaxy hole. Sometimes Galaxy figures come with these arm variants. I don't know why these arm variants exist really, but they are a bit longer, hence their nickname, and they have smooth gauntlets. And I suppose I should mention on the long arm molds, the gauntlets do have a bump on the right arm. This might make a little more sense if the figures with the long arms weren't made by Sungold, but my long arm Huck has a Sungold stamp on his back. And this is how the Freedom Fighter figures are most commonly stamped, with just Sungold on the back like the Turly gang figures. So here's my two green Freedom Fighter Anubis. And you might be wondering why they made their Wolfman green, and the answer is, oh no, but I do have a theory. Either to be lazier or a little bit cheaper, you'll notice there are a couple of body color types missing from the Freedom Fighters. They didn't make any figures with brown bodies in Freedom Fighters, so Anubi got a green one like Sawhack and Dino Man. And Yig got a black body like Spikes, and there seems to have been a variant where Yig had a painted head or a not painted head. And any painted head one I've seen has been chipping pretty bad. And kind of interestingly, Yig with a black body is also how they did his bootleg in Muscle Warriors / Galaxy Heroes version 2. And then I guess kind of unsurprisingly, they didn't do the specific orange body for Tiger Man and just gave him the red body that both Dragoon and Thor used. But since they didn't actually make Yig's head black or Tiger Man's head red is why I find Green Anubi to be the most interesting change in this line. Just look at all these variations of Anubi just from Galaxy Warriors and Freedom Fighters. And much like in Galaxy Warriors, we've got the variant of an unpainted head Anubi from Freedom Fighters and a painted one. My painted head version 2 Anubi who is on the card has a much glossier looking head than the version 1 Anubi. And the version 2 Freedom Fighter Anubi has the long arms. Also, his plastic sword somehow managed to get a rusty look in the package, so that's cool, I guess. And of course, there's yet another variation here, because it's the Galaxy Hole. While my version 1 Freedom Fighter Anubi has the Sungold stamp on his back, the version 2 one has nothing! Also, his back looks a lot glossier, much like his painted head. So this kind of raises the question, why does Long Arm Huck have the Sungold stamp on his back and Long Arm Anubi doesn't? Now, one possible explanation is this Long Arm Huck came in that Snow Giants version package of Freedom Fighters, which actually had the Sungold logo on it. So does that mean these Freedom Fighters that don't have the Sungold logo on them weren't made by Sungold? I don't know. The Galaxy Hole laughs at your pitiful attempts to try and figure anything out. Now, there is also a shield difference between the two Freedom Fighter lines. The Magnon Sawhack carded figures came with the standard Galaxy Warrior shields with the stupid surprised Panther and the Eagle. But the Huck Dragoon carded figures came with new shield stickers, one featuring a tiger with a mace, and the other was a dragon holding a dagger in its mouth. I gotta say, I rather dig the new shield stickers. And Freedom Fighter Tiger Man better have come with this shield. This also seems to be a common issue with Freedom Fighter harnesses where the backstrap has absolutely no chance of actually snapping together. And the square harness Green Anubi is wearing is extremely flat gray. I mean, just look at that next to the super shiny silver one Spikes has. Now, one of the quickest ways to know if you're dealing with a Freedom Fighter figure versus a Galaxy Warrior one is the construction of the legs. The Galaxy Warriors, of course, had the banded legs like the Masters of the Universe figures. But Freedom Fighters do not. They are ball-jointed legs. This makes them easier to stand at times, but it also makes their legs a lot stiffer when you want to move them. And speaking of stiff legs, I've got this possibly bootleg Freedom Fighter Spikes. This figure of Spikes is a long arm variant, and you can notice that his helmet has a lot more of a bluer tint on the green than the Galaxy Warrior Spikes. His gauntlets and boots are also painted a much lighter purple than original Galaxy Warrior Spikes. Another strange thing about this Spikes figure is he's got a larger head, which is closer to version 1 Spikes in Galaxy Warriors, where mine is a version 2. And an immediate tell that this guy has something weird going on is his belt isn't painted. I should also mention that this guy still does have a rubbery, squishy head like all the Galaxy Warriors and Freedom Fighters. This guy has no marking on his back, much like my version 2 carded Anubi. However, he does have China marked on the inside of his leg. The only other Galaxy Hole line that I can think of that I've seen marked this way is the Gargoyles cash-in line, Gargoyle Protector. So I don't know if this Spikes got released in Gargoyle Protector for some reason, or if this is a completely different line, but I'm including him with the Freedom Fighters because he's got ball-jointed legs like them. And now let's introduce yet another oddity, which I'm not sure if fits in the Freedom Fighter line or not. So now we've possibly added a Turly gang head into the Freedom Fighters with the second version of Primus's head. This is quite odd, as far as I've seen, Sungold has never used Turly gang heads on any of their other Galaxy Hole lines before this. We do have the non-Sungold line, the Tortoise Warriors, which used up those original version 1 Primus and Secondus heads, but we have a good idea of why that happened. And I don't understand why they painted this guy's head tan like this, which does not match the body, especially where you can see the plastic under it was actually green, which would have matched. It's like they painted this guy's head to not match like Dino Man's, which maybe is the answer to why this happened. Maybe in some releases of Freedom Fighters, they lost the Dino Man head sculpt and just started running second version head Primuses as a stand-in. I don't know for sure if this figure was released as a Freedom Fighter, but just about every other time I've seen this guy pop up, it's been grouped with other Freedom Fighter figures. And what makes this guy more likely to have been released as a Freedom Fighter than a Turly Gang member is, well, he doesn't have banded legs like Turly Gang members. He's got the ball joint legs. And the Dino Man connection is a nice lead-in for this weird version of Dino Man. Now, this weird Dino Man is not how he ever looked in normal Freedom Fighters, but in a possible bootleg of Freedom Fighters, which used the MK3/The Room font. And this Galaxy Warriors bootleg seems to have started out calling itself Galaxy Warriors, and they even went so far to follow the name change to Freedom Fighters. Wow. Though you might notice on this weird Galaxy Warriors card that it says The Last Battle, so that really differentiates them. Just kidding, Galaxy Warrior End of Time The Last Battle is another Sungold line. And we'll of course talk about that line more in its own dedicated video. So these Galaxy Warrior bootlegs are yet another long arm variant. And they have quite the different color scheme. These Galaxy knockoffs are also notable for having a different trunk type with this kind of brick pattern. They also have no markings on the actual figures whatsoever. This is another line that retained the rubbery, squishy heads. But two of the characters from this line were rip-offs from the Dinosaurs show. One seemingly having the head of the boss from that show and one of the sun. And then if you want to take a little trip down the hole here, those figures also showed up in the line Dino Warriors. And of course, there is yet another different Galaxy Hole line called Dino Warriors. And then, much like the Galaxy Warriors and Fighters, there is also Dino Fighter, which was put out by the Steffi Love Company, Simba. Anyway, getting back to the Freedom Fighters, there's a third ugly card type, which is apparently a multi-purpose card used for Lords of Insects, Freedom Fighters, and End of Time figures. And on that card is a lovely long-arm Boltard, who seems to have some paint coming off, and his body looks to have been painted too? Yes, this seems to be yet another variant in Freedom Fighters, as I've also seen a Sawhack who seems to have his body painted with it chipping off in places. And there also seems to be an extra long neck Sawhack that exists. Just stop! I think the Galaxy Holes almost melted my brain at this point, but there you go. There's the lineup of Freedom Fighters. Well, maybe they're all Freedom Fighters. I don't know that I've collected. These are exactly the Galaxy Warriors, except for some of the characters having some different colors, some different arms on some of them, and of course the ball-jointed legs, which are not quite as flexible, but much more sturdy. And of course they won't get as loose as the rubber-banded legs. How soft the rubber heads are seems to vary from the different releases, and parts on them might be painted on some releases, which won't be on others. 9. This is is just another release of the Galaxy Warriors by Sungold, and possibly also by not Sungold. The biggest thing they did was cut out some of the colors and then re-engineer the lag articulation. 3. The Galaxy whole mess really gets hard to deal with sometimes. Why Sungold even renamed the line is a good question, but most likely this was done to sort of refresh the figures for the 90s, as He-Man wasn't as big by then. Now, why there are 2 different releases with slight differences is anyone's guess. It would have made a little more sense if one type of the Freedom Fighters was by Sungold and the other wasn't, but that's not a sure thing either. We got Long Arm Freedom Fighters stamped by Sungold, Long Arm Freedom Fighters not stamped by Sungold, Snow Giants package without Sungold logo, and Snow Giants package with Sungold logo. And it seems we randomly have a Turly Gang character in this line, despite him never showing up on the packaging. And then there's the Freedom Fighter bootlegs, which is assuming that some of these ones aren't already bootlegs. Also, Green Wolfman, 10. We got one card which has some more Frazetta knockoff artwork, and then one card which might just be Frazetta inspired. These Freedom Fighters are really hard to find packaged. Most of the ones I've seen with the Magnon Sawhack card came from Australia, and the Huck Dragoon type that I got came from Malta. These things obviously came out in other areas as well, but I'm not too sure if they ever commercially released in North America, as I think the only times I've seen these things for sale in North America is from collectors. The fact Sungold was around until the 90s is rather amazing, and thinking about that more really makes me wonder if they ever did get ugly with Suko for the Galaxy Fighters or any of their other bootleggers of their knockoff. 9. Just like the Galaxy Warriors, these kind of go perfectly with Masters of the Universe or any other toy line of that scale. 10. And the bootleg zones overall is 9! Freedom Fighters raise a lot of questions. Just wish there'd been a little more variation in the line, which could have masked them not running certain body color plastic a little better. Which is why I really like the green Anubi variant, because they actually made his head green and it's so weird. Glad a green Wolfman was something that happened at least twice in the Galaxy Hole lines.
Hey, green Anubis! I finally did it! I got myself kicked out of the Galaxy Warriors! Well, I was just wondering, could I join the Freedom Fighters?
Oh no, not Baltard! There goes our awesome Freedom Fighter group! Wait a second, isn't Baltard already in the Freedom Fighters? Oh yeah, I think you're right. But there's no need to tell him that. Yeah, let's just get rid of this guy.
Guys, stop talking amongst yourselves. It's rude.
Eat Rusty Sword, loser.
Huh? So if I clean your rusty sword, I can join your group?
What? No. Listen, Baltard, we really don't have time for this. We're too busy standing here doing nothing. Go bug Dino Man about this.
Oh boy, Dino Man! He's always liked me. He'll let me in.
Biggest loser on planet Fair? Oh yeah.
Hey, Dino Man, guess who the Green Anubi said could be in the Freedom Fighters?
Dino Man? Are you kidding me? I wouldn't know anything about being Dino Man.
Look, green body, peach head, you gotta be Dino Man!
Oh, so all of us with green bodies and peach heads look the same to you, do we? You disgust me, Baltard.
Whoopsie doodles.
Hey, stupid top-knot purple guy, I believe you want to talk to me? Stop bugging that non-Turly Gang guy. I wouldn't know anything about the Turly Gang. Yeah, of course you wouldn't.
So, real Dino Man? I can join the Freedom Fighters, right?
Yes, you can.
Yay!
But I'm afraid I'm not a part of the same Freedom Fighters as those guys over there.
Wait, what? There's multiple Freedom Fighters groups?
Yeah. Yes, and if you're gonna join my freedom fighters, you're gonna have to put on some sweet brick trunks.
Brick trunks? That's stupid. No way.
You want to join my freedom fighters, Baltard?
Oh, wow. Spikes. He's cool. Yeah, sure. I'll join your freedom fighters. Who else is in it?
I don't know.
Oh, Huck, please, please, I've been having a really bad day. Let me into the Freedom Fighters.
Baltard? Is that you, man? I'm so high right now.
Damn!
Hey, Baltard, you might be having a hard time getting into the Freedom Fighters, but you can always join me and Baltard in the Galaxy Fighters.
Batoon took my spear away because he said it's too pointy. Ew! No, I'm not joining Galaxy Fighters. I'm not that desperate. Ugh.
Wow, Baltard turned down a group he was already in. That's kind of weird.
That hurts my feels.
Who let that Galaxy Fighter trash in here? Get them!
Oops.